On the distant world of Zillaris, a planet known throughout the Interstellar Federation for its proud traditions and strict social codes, Princess Leora's birth was met with a mixture of awe and quiet disappointment. From the moment she opened her eyes, it was clear she was unlike any other royal heir before her. Her small frame bore the marks of a rare physical condition, one that affected her movement and left her walking with the aid of a delicate but sturdy brace. In Zillaris society, strength and grace were prized above all else, especially in those destined to lead. And this unwelcome difference made Leora an outsider from the very beginning. Despite being the daughter of the revered King Eris and Queen Selene, who loved her dearly, the whispers around the palace halls could not be silenced. Many alien nobles and officials questioned her suitability to rule, convinced that her body's limits would reflect on her ability to lead their people. When it came time to seek a suitor, every alien male of suitable rank, princes, generals, high diplomats, alike came forward at first, drawn by royal obligation and political gain. But as soon as they saw Leora in person, their faces hardened. None saw the kind and brilliant mind behind the braces. They only saw what they thought was weakness, and one by one they refused her with polite smiles that masked deeper disdain. The princess felt the sting of rejection, each refusal a silent echo in the empty chambers of her heart. She found herself growing lonelier, her world shrinking to the cold stone walls of the palace and the pages of books, where heroes won not by might but by courage and kindness. Leora dreamed of a day when she could show her people that worth came in many forms, not just in strength or flawless bodies, but in spirit and resolve. Her hope flickered, fragile yet persistent, as she secretly practiced walking without the brace and trained her mind with lessons on history, science, and diplomacy. Then, one day, news arrived that a delegation of humans, curious explorers, and diplomats from a faraway blue planet called Earth were coming to Zillaris for a cultural exchange. The humans were an unusual sight. Unlike the tall, live Xylarisians, humans varied widely in shape and ability, and they carried with them a reputation for open minds and unexpected kindness. Among the humans was Captain Marcus, a man known not just for his skill but for his empathy, someone who saw beyond appearances to the heart beneath. When the delegation landed amidst the grand celebrations of the planet's new cycle, many Xylarisians gathered to watch, eager to see the strange visitors and judge them by their alien standards. Leora too was present, but stayed apart, observing. Quietly from a distance, her curious eyes catching every detail, Captain Marcus noticed her immediately, the quiet princess whose gaze was filled with both sadness and something stronger, a spark that refused to be extinguished. Unlike others, Marcus did not look away or dismiss her as less than perfect. Instead, he saw a person longing to be understood and accepted. Slowly, an unspoken connection formed between them, one that puzzled and unsettled the court, but gave Leora a glimmer of hope. Yet beneath the surface of this new friendship, the currents of suspicion and tradition churned. Many in the Zillaris court viewed the humans with wary eyes, and the idea of the princess forming a bond with a foreigner was unsettling to some powerful figures who preferred the old ways and feared change. Leora herself felt the weight of their judgment, knowing that any step she took alongside Marcus could draw more rejection or worse. But for the first time in her life, she found someone who looked past her braces and her disability to see the strength she carried inside. And as she stood beside the strange human beneath the alien stars, the question hung in the air: could this unlikely friendship spark a change that would reshape not only Leora's fate, but the future of her world? The answer was uncertain, but the story had already begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The grand diplomatic hall of Zillaris shimmered with polished silver and glowing crystal lights as leaders and dignitaries from across the galaxy gathered for a night meant to celebrate peace and alliance. The air buzzed with conversations in alien languages, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of elegant glasses. Among the crowd, Princess Leora remained at the edge, quietly watching rather than participating, her eyes scanning the room with a complex blend of hope and caution. She was dressed in a simple gown that shimmered like starlight, but no amount. A finery could hide the way her disability made her movements slower, more deliberate than the graceful beings around her. Many ignored her, some with pity, others with thinly veiled disdain, but none approached her with genuine interest. Meanwhile, Captain Marcus moved through the gathering with ease. Speaking with various alien officials, his manner respectful, yet relaxed, he was aware of the undercurrents of judgment directed at Leora, but chose not to let the alien biases shape his view. Something about the quiet princess standing alone caught his attention, not just her appearance, but the strength in her eyes, the kind of strength that did not come from muscles or speed, but from an inner fire that refused to be snuffed out. Marcus remembered the stories his own people told about overcoming hardship, the way humans valued courage in many forms, and he felt a deep urge to reach out to her. Their first interaction was brief and careful. He approached her gently, offering a smile that was both warm and free of condescension. Leora hesitated, unsure if she could trust this stranger, but something in his calm voice encouraged her to respond. They spoke quietly, exchanging polite words that soon turned to more personal stories. Marcus shared tales of Earth, of cities, where diversity was a strength and differences were celebrated rather than scorned. Leora listened with wide eyes, fascinated by a world so different from hers, where people with all kinds of challenges could live full lives. She, in turn, told Marcus about her life on Zilurus, the isolation she felt, the silent battles against prejudice, and her dreams of proving that true leadership came from heart and mind rather than flawless bodies. As they spoke, the noise of the party faded away for them, and a fragile but meaningful bond began to form. This new friendship was not without its dangers. Around them, whispers spread quickly. Some nobles frowned at the sight of the princess speaking so openly with a foreigner, especially a human, whom many still saw as primitive or unpredictable. Others whispered doubts about Marcus's intentions, suspecting political schemes or disrespect for their traditions. Leora felt the heavy gaze of her court weighing down on her, yet she found a strange comfort in Marcus's steady presence. The alliance of two very different worlds, one old and rigid, the other young and free, seemed to spark possibilities that many on Zilurus feared to imagine. Over the next few days, Marcus and Leora met whenever they could, sharing small moments of laughter, learning, and quiet support. He taught her about human customs, how they celebrated differences, and looked beyond appearances, while she revealed the rich history of her people, the beauty of their culture, and the pain of its limitations. They discovered that, despite the vast distance between their planets and the differences in their lives, their struggles were strikingly similar. Both had faced rejection and judgment, yet both held on to hope that change was possible. Their conversations deepened, filled with honest reflections on fear, courage, and the meaning of strength. But the growing closeness did not go unnoticed. The alien court grew restless, with some leaders warning the king that this friendship might threaten the fragile balance of their society. Others whispered that Marcus's kindness could be a tactic, a subtle form of influence meant to weaken Zilurus's traditions. Leora found herself caught between worlds, struggling to honor her duty to her people while embracing the freedom that Marcus's friendship offered. She wondered if she could ever bridge these divides without losing herself in the process. One evening, during a quiet walk through the palace gardens, Marcus encouraged Leora to look beyond the walls that held her back, to imagine a future where people were valued for who they truly were, not judged by rigid standards. His words stirred something deep inside her, a determination that had been dormant but now burned brighter than ever. As the twin moons of Zilurus rose high above, casting their pale light on the garden's silver leaves, Leora realized that her journey was just beginning. The unexpected bond between a human and a disabled alien princess was more than a friendship. It was a challenge to an entire world's beliefs. A spark that could ignite a transformation, if only they dared to. Hope. Yet shadows lingered. Not everyone wished to see change, and threats, both quiet and overt, began to take shape in the corridors of power. Leora and Marcus knew that standing together meant facing opposition that could tear them apart. But in that moment, under the alien stars, they made an unspoken promise to hold on to each other and to fight for a future, where acceptance was not just a dream, but a reality. The story of the rejected princess and the human captain was no longer just a secret shared between two hearts. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with courage, mystery, and the possibility of a world transformed by understanding and hope. As the days passed on Zelaris, what began as quiet curiosity around Princess Leora's unusual friendship with Captain Marcus grew into a storm brewing beneath the polished surface of the royal court. Not everyone welcomed the change that Marcus represented, and not everyone accepted Leora's quiet defiance of tradition. It's a powerful faction within the Alien Council, composed of influential nobles and military leaders who had long held the reins of power, saw the princess's growing bond with the human captain as a threat to the very foundation of their society. These conservative forces feared that if Leora's courage and Marcus's foreign ideas gained support, the old customs that kept their social order intact could crumble. They whispered in shadowed chambers, plotting to discredit the princess by any means necessary, spreading rumors that questioned her judgment and loyalty. They claimed that Marcus was a manipulative outsider, bent on undermining Zelaris from within, using Leora's kindness as a tool to weaken the kingdom's traditions and open the gates to dangerous change. The halls that once echoed with respect for the royal family now carried murmurs of doubt and suspicion. Leora, once shielded by her royal title, now found herself a target of scorn and distrust. Invitations to court events were withdrawn, her speeches were ignored, and her name was spoken with hesitation or disdain by those who once bowed before her. The loneliness she had felt as a child now returned, darker and heavier, but this time, with the added weight of political danger. Marcus, aware of the risks, stood firm beside her. Together, they understood that their alliance was no longer just a private friendship, but a symbol of a potential revolution that scared the old powers. They met in secret, sharing whispered plans and quiet reassurances, their trust in each other deepening as they faced the growing storm. The captain used his knowledge of diplomacy and human resilience to advise Leora on how to navigate the treacherous waters of Zelaris politics. He encouraged her to hold her head high, to remember that true leaders often faced opposition before they could inspire change. Meanwhile, Leora drew strength from Marcus's unwavering belief in her worth, which helped her resist the poison of doubt that the council's conspirators tried to plant in her mind. Yet, the conspirators did not stop at words. Strange accidents began to occur. Guard assigned to protect the princess was found unconscious. The security systems around the palace showed signs of tampering, and false reports of Leora's missteps were leaked to the public. The tension in the court became palpable, as every corner seemed to hide eyes watching her, every shadow a potential danger. Still, the princess refused to retreat into fear. She convened a small group of trusted advisors, some younger nobles, and scholars who believed in the possibility of a new Zelaris to help her prepare a response to the growing threats. With Marcus's help, they drafted plans to expose the conspiracy without igniting open conflict, hoping to appeal to reason and justice rather than violence. Meanwhile, rumors spread beyond the palace walls, stirring the general population. Some sympathized with Leora, seeing her struggle as one against unfair prejudice and rigid tradition, while others feared that the old ways were slipping away, threatening their way of life. Protests began quietly, voices rising in the streets, and the once peaceful city felt the stirrings of unrest. Despite the dangers, the unexpected alliance between a disabled alien princess and a human captain became a beacon of hope for those longing for change. At the same time, Leora's family watched with concern, parents torn between love for their daughter and fear of political collapse, struggled to protect her while maintaining their own power. The king held private meetings with the council, trying to balance tradition with the undeniable loyalty Leora inspired in parts of the population. Meanwhile, Queen Celine remained a steadfast pillar of support for her daughter, reminding her that strength was not measured in bodies, but in courage and conviction. As pressure mounted, a crucial moment arrived when the council called for a public hearing, a formal meeting where Leora was expected to answer accusations and defend her actions. The event was meant to publicly discredit her and sever the bond. with Marcus, but it also presented a rare opportunity. With careful preparation and Marcus's steady presence by her side, Leora faced the council and the watching crowd. Her voice was calm but firm as she spoke not just of her personal struggle, but of the need for a society that embraced all its members, regardless of differences. She challenged the council's fears with reason and emotion, reminding everyone that the future belonged to those willing to grow beyond old limits. The tension in the hall was thick, with moments of silence that felt like a held breath before an unseen storm. Yet something shifted. Some members of the council, moved by her words and by the quiet strength she showed, began to question their own long-held beliefs. The hearing ended without a clear verdict, leaving the question of Leora's fate and the future of Zalaris hanging in the balance. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus and Leora knew that the battle was far from over. The shadows of conspiracy still lingered, and those who wished to keep power would not give up easily. But in their hearts, they carried a shared resolved face. Whatever came next, together. The story of the rejected princess and the human captain was no longer just about two individuals, but about a world on the edge of transformation, caught between the old and the new. And with every challenge they met, the promise of change grew brighter, lighting a path through the darkness of fear and prejudice toward a future filled with hope. The peace that had settled uneasily over Zalaris was shattered one quiet morning, when the skies darkened with the arrival of an unexpected and aggressive alien fleet. This species, known only as the Varan, was notorious across the galaxy for their ruthless tactics and swift conquests of weaker planets. Their massive ships blocked the twin suns, casting long shadows over the cities, and panic began to spread among the people. The council, shaken by the sudden threat, called an emergency meeting to decide the planet's fate. But old divisions ran deep, and no clear plan emerged. In the midst of this chaos, Princess Leora saw something others overlooked: the chance to prove her true strength, not through tradition or appearances, but through courage and wisdom. She understood that leadership was not about flawless bodies or titles, but about the ability to inspire, to think clearly under pressure, and to protect those who could not defend themselves. With Marcus standing loyally by her side, she proposed a bold plan to the council: a mission to infiltrate the Varan command ship and negotiate a ceasefire before the planet was destroyed. Many doubted her, dismissing the idea as reckless and beyond her ability, but the desperation of the moment forced the leaders to agree. Leora quickly assembled a team of individuals unlike any before, a mix of scientists, warriors, diplomats, and engineers, all chosen not for their strength alone, but for their unique talents and their willingness to work together. Her disability, once seen as a barrier, became a surprising asset in planning the mission. She had spent years observing and understanding her world in ways others had not, learning to see details and patterns that escaped even the most powerful warriors. Her insights into the Vorn's movements and habits, combined with Marcus's knowledge of human tactics and diplomacy, shaped a plan that relied on intelligence and heart rather than brute force. As the team prepared, the tension in the air was thick. Each member felt the weight of the planet's future on their shoulders, and doubts whispered in quiet moments. But Leora's calm determination became a steadying force, reminding them why they fought, not just for power or pride, but for every life that called Zalaris home. The mission began under the cover of darkness, with Leora and her team navigating through treacherous space to reach the enemy vessel. Her brace did not hinder her. Instead, it reminded her of the perseverance that had carried her through years of rejection and doubt. Inside the Varan ship, the team faced dangers both expected and surprising: traps, hostile guards, and technology unlike anything they had seen. But Leora's ability to remain calm under pressure, her keen observation, and her empathy for those caught in the conflict allowed her to find ways around obstacles and connect with unexpected allies among the Varan themselves, those who questioned their leader's ruthless plans. With Marcus communicating and negotiating alongside her, they found common ground, convincing some of the Varan commanders that destroying Zalaris would bring only more enemies and suffering. The mission's success was not just in stopping the attack, but in planting seeds of understanding between two very different peoples. When the ceasefire was declared and the Varan ships withdrew, the people of Zilluris erupted in celebration. But Leora knew the real victory was deeper. Her disability, once viewed as a weakness, had been a source of unique strength, giving her insight, patience, and compassion that no perfect body could replace. Her courage inspired not just her team but her entire world, showing that true valor was measured not by physical might but by heart and mind. Marcus stood beside her as they watched the stars return to their usual brightness, knowing that this moment marked the beginning of a new era for Zilluris, a future where acceptance, understanding, and courage would guide the path forward. Yet even in victory, they remained vigilant, aware that challenges lay ahead, but ready to face them together. Stronger than ever, in the days that followed the retreat of the Varan fleet, Zilluris did not simply return to how it had been before. The air itself felt different, as if the winds carried with them the promise of something new. For centuries, strength had meant perfection in form, flawless movement, and unshaken confidence. But Princess Leora's bravery had challenged that idea. In front of the entire world, her actions during the mission, her ability to lead, stay calm under pressure, to unite a diverse team, and even connect with members of a hostile alien force, became the talk of every corner of Zilluris, from royal courts to city streets. Stories of her quiet determination, her brilliant mind, the courage she showed while walking into danger on legs once doubted by all, spread like fire. And standing beside her through every challenge was Captain Marcus, the human once viewed as an outsider, now seen with new eyes. At first, some still clung to old thoughts, hesitant to admit they had been wrong, but as more voices joined in praise, the resistance began to fade. People who had never questioned their traditions started asking themselves what strength really meant, and the answers that came surprised them. Leora was no longer spoken of as the disabled princess. In hushed voices, she was called the Light-Bearer. It's the one who led them through darkness when even their strongest warriors had no answers. Marcus was honored too, not just for helping stop the Varan threat, but for standing beside Leora when no one else would, seeing her worth long before the world did. He was invited to speak at the Grand Hall of Unity, where all major decisions of Zilluris were made. His words about Earth's belief in diversity and human resilience struck a chord with many who had once looked at him with suspicion. Together, Leora and Marcus became symbols not of rebellion, but of renewal. The council, once filled with members who plotted against her, now listened closely when she spoke. Some of the most powerful voices who had doubted her before began to support reforms that would have once seemed impossible. New laws were proposed to promote equality, not just for those with disabilities, but for all who had ever been pushed aside because they did not fit a narrow image of strength. Education changed too. Children learned about different kinds of intelligence, different ways of moving and thinking, and they read about Leora not as a figure of pity, but as a hero who changed the course of history. The cultural shift wasn't instant, and it wasn't. Perfect change never is, but it was real, and it was spreading. Temples began to speak of balance between body, mind, and heart. Artists painted scenes of Leora standing tall with her brace reflecting the starlight, surrounded by people of every kind, Zilluris citizens. Humans, even reformed Voran allies, walking together into a future shaped by unity rather than fear. A special day was declared, known as the Day of the Turning Star. To remember when Zilluris first chose hope over prejudice, led not by flawless warriors, but by a princess who had once been rejected by all. Leora herself remained humble through it all, though honored and praised. She often said that her strength came not from herself alone, but from those who believed in her when it mattered most, her parents who never stopped loving her, the brave team who trusted her leadership, and above all, Marcus, whose quiet support had never wavered. She continued to serve not as a distant ruler, but as a voice among the people, listening to their fears, learning from their stories, and shaping decisions. With wisdom and compassion, the friendship between Earth and Zilluris grew stronger as well. More humans arrived to learn and share, and in turn, Zilurisians traveled to Earth. discovering a planet that, like their own, was still learning how to grow kinder and stronger at the same time. Marcus was appointed as an honorary ambassador, not just between the two planets, but as a living symbol of cooperation across species. Even the Varan, after years of aggression, sent a delegation to apologize and offer peace. Moved by Leora's choice to negotiate instead of destroy, the scars of the past were not forgotten, but they became reminders of how far they had come. And though Leora still walked with the same brace, it was no longer hidden or looked at with pity. It had become part of the legend, a mark of everything she had overcome. Young children wore silver-colored bands in honor of her, pretending they, too, could lead brave missions and change the world. And every time she passed through a crowd, people stepped forward not to question her, but to thank her for showing them that real strength lives in those who rise, even when the world expects them to fall. In the end, Zelaris did not just survive the darkness, it found a new light in it, one born from struggle, friendship, and a truth that had long been forgotten, that true worth has nothing to do with how perfect someone looks, and everything to do with who they choose to be when it matters most. And as the twin suns rose over the palace once again, casting their golden light on a world forever changed, Princess Leora and Captain Marcus stood side by side, not as the rejected and the outsider, but as leaders of a new Erewhon shaped by trust, compassion, and a future full of stars.